And some of the things that I do is I have a Substack called Side Quests. So Side Quest is kind of how I branded myself to be inconsistent and for other people to be okay with it because I love so many things. I go on so many little side quests or diversions or little research rabbit holes that might not be connected to what I'm doing in the moment. But I found that all those little rabbit holes in different pathways eventually come together. So I'm really just trying to create a creative business that encapsulates all those different parts of me and also helps other people do the same.
Welcome to Big Crystal Energy, Season 3, the Veil Season. I'm Ashleigh, and I live at the threshold. Between medicine and magic, between the visible world and what waits just beyond it, between the person I present and the witch I am. I've learned something. The in-between isn't a problem to solve. It's a place of power. This season, we're exploring the veil, where Victorian women spoke for the dead, where fairies guard the crossroads, where glamour becomes armor, where you stop apologizing for being both things at once. The crystals have always known the way through. Let me show you. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Big Crystal Energy. I'm Ashleigh, and I'm super excited because today I have the amazing Aryn Scanlon on the podcast. And they are someone that I've been wanting to connect with for a while. I'm trying to think in my head how I even discovered their work. But once I did, I was like, this is my person. I love what they're doing in the world, what they're putting out in the world. And so I'm going to let them really just introduce themselves. But today, I think the main part of our conversation is just talking about creativity and whimsy and having that kind of excitement and zest for life. And I'm wearing my beautiful fairy mushroom dress because, that's been my vibe lately, especially in the spring. So Aryn, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me, Ashleigh, and for also just like highlighting creativity and whimsy because that is absolutely my favorite thing ever. So a little bit more about me. My name's Aryn Scanlon, or Aryn the Alchemist, as I'm known on Instagram and my website. And I refer to myself as many things: a creative coach, interdisciplinary artist, a writer of novels. And my coaching technique really involves multimodalities. So astrology, tarot, ancestor work, shadow work, glamour magic. And I've found that just seeing all those things as connected as opposed to these like separate buckets has been a big game changer for me. And some of the things that I do is I have a Substack called Side Quests. So Side Quest is kind of how I branded myself to be inconsistent and for other people to be okay with it because I love so many things. I go on so many little side quests or diversions or little research rabbit holes that might not be connected to what I'm doing in the moment. But I found that all those little rabbit holes in different pathways eventually come together. So I'm really just trying to create a creative business that encapsulates all those different parts of me and also helps other people do the same because I want to work with artists who are interdisciplinary, interested in very like tons of different mediums. And I have found that other people struggle with things that I do, like perfectionism and people pleasing, and a lot of these scripts we inherit from society that actually limit our creativity. So that's a little bit more about me.
I love that because that resonates so deeply with me. I'm always going down some sort of rabbit hole, side quest. I'm like, what does this have to do with anything? But then it actually has to do with everything.
True.
I mean, that's what it ends up being. You pull from this, and then it all somehow kind of weaves together. And I've truly been seeing, as I've been reflecting lately on kind of my own path through my own life, I'm really realizing how these little seeds that got planted when I was a small child are now really like the momentum has been building all these years. And now it's like, whoa, I'm interested what young Aryn was like.
I love that. I've always been pretty dreamy and creative. My parents have stories about me when I was like a baby, being very interested in art and drawing. There's actually a picture of me probably at like 9 or 10 months old. My mom would just put down newspaper and paint and just like let me roll around in it. So my parents have always been very supportive of my creativity. As a young
Love that.
child, I was really into animals. Like I wanted to be a veterinarian and a fashion designer. My teenage bedroom had wall to wall, like ripped out magazine pictures. Like I loved fashion. I loved like I was obsessed with The Devil Wears Prada. I was
Oh,
like,
me too.
yes, like my dream is
Uh-huh.
to move to New York City and be in the fashion industry. And I've always been a writer. I've been writing stories since I was like probably in elementary school. And so, yeah, I feel like the younger me is pretty consistent with the older me because I never felt that I had to hide my creativity. And again, I was just, my parents were very supportive. They also allowed me to experiment with different mediums without pressure. And I think part of that is because my mom grew up kind of being forced to do like ballet, for example, and she never
Mm.
wanted to put that pressure on me.
Mhm.
So, I'd be like, I want to do sewing class. And I'd do that for a couple years and then I would quit. Or my dad got me a guitar and got me guitar lessons. And I wasn't very consistent with that either. But I do think that I don't know. I also am ADHD, so there's that. But I do come back to these things eventually. So I do think like younger me was pretty open and magical and whimsical and like did not really shy away from those parts of me. Even in middle school, I remember I would wear these kind of outrageous outfits because I was sort of figuring out my style. And like other kids would try to make fun of me. And I was like, okay. And I would just look at what they're wearing and be like, why are you even
Accordingly.
to me? Like at least I'm like experimenting and trying. So I've always kind of been that way where it's never been a problem to me if I'm different than other people. And I kind of like sticking out. I don't know. I kind of grew up in a place, at least most of my childhood, that was pretty concerned with looking like everybody else and like fitting in and like keeping up with the Joneses. And at a very
Mhm.
young age, I was like, no, we're not doing that.
I love that you say that your parents were very supportive of all your creativity because I think that starts so young for a lot of us.
Yeah.
I mean, I think a lot of me having to step away from a lot of the things that I'm into is because I felt a lot of pressure, not necessarily from my mom, but from my dad to be more normal, to have like a regular career where I'm making, X, like always very money. Everything was always like very money driven. Like you need to make a lot of money. Like, what are you doing to make money? And so, I mean, that was always in my mind. And I kind of never really considered that maybe, there were other paths other than like going to medical school or being a lawyer or being a dentist or whatever. So, I mean, I went to medical school, but, I mean, I love that creativity. And I mean, I have two little boys. I have a 9-year-old and a 3-year-old. And I try to always just encourage them to be whatever they want because I felt like I didn't necessarily get that encouragement. I'm curious too, like what part of the country did you grow up in?
So I grew up in Southern California. Both my parents moved there from the Midwest. So I would say even though I grew up in like Orange County area,
Mhm.
I had very Midwestern values because both
Okay.
my parents like grew up in there and I would travel back to the Midwest quite a bit when I was growing up and I felt like kind of isolated in California from the rest of my family because it was mostly just like my mom and my dad and I had like an uncle who also lived in California. So I kind of grew up moving between different spaces. And I'm actually really grateful that I did because I mean, the Midwest is very different from Southern California.
Oh, sure.
Most places are very different from Southern California. So I got
Oh,
to
yeah.
kind of see a wide range of things and like different kinds of like cultural identities and like perspectives about things. But yeah, I'm very much a OC born and raised.
Interesting. Are you still there now?
No, I'm in Milwaukee now
Oh,
in
yeah.
the
I was like, wait, we have a big time difference. No, of course you're
yeah.
not. You're in Milwaukee. Oh, that's a city I've never been to.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I grew up in Nebraska. So I know all about the Midwest. And I always felt like growing up that I was not meant for the Midwest lifestyle. Like that was just not for me. And I had
Mhm.
family that lived in Southern California and LA. And I would go out to LA and visit. And I'd be like, oh, I am just a girl about the city. I gotta get out of Nebraska. So I made sure that when I went to college, like I went to college at least across state lines from Nebraska. So I went really far. I went all the way to Kansas. But then beyond that, when I went to graduate school, I was like, well, maybe I can finally get out of the Midwest. And I went to school in California and I've been here ever since. But it's like that knowing, that you, even so young, like that knowing of like what you were made for. And I never, like, I always wanted to be different too when I was younger. But sometimes in the Midwest, it can feel like that's hard. And it's interesting that you say that even in Southern California, but I think in Orange County specifically, the vibe is maybe, I don't know, is it more conservative? It's not like Hollywood,
No, I would
right?
say like Orange County is kind of a weird place in California because it is one of the more conservative counties. But also, like, I've also found that a lot of people's perception of Orange County really only highlighted a very specific experience, like what you would see in the show, The OC. And there's definitely a lot of that. But I definitely found growing up, because I went to college in Orange County as well, a different place than I grew up. But a lot of my friends who are like from Bay Area or whatever would be like, what is going on here? Like it's just so different. And I felt always like the veneer of Orange County appears one way, but when you go deeper into it, there's actually like a lot more diversity, a lot more like it's not all like super wealthy or conservative. Like there's
Sure.
pockets, just like everywhere else, like
Of course.
one perspective is not going to encapsulate all that there is. And I actually feel like I'm exploring that in my writing currently. I'm writing two novels actually that are based in Orange County because I think part of what I want to do is really show a part of the Orange County that isn't often seen or isn't often represented. And I've been doing my research of like what are other books, movies, TV shows that are based in there. And there are very few actually.
Oh,
Like a
wow.
lot of what we see from SoCal is like obviously based in like LA or like other
Hmm.
places that, yeah, are probably more interesting than Orange County. But also like I just want to explore that landscape in literature
Hmm.
and explain a little bit about what it was like to actually grow up there.
I think that will be fascinating, honestly, to a lot of people because we all have these perceptions about a place,
Yeah.
but that perception may not. I mean, it's pictured in movies and things like that, but that's actually not really what it always feels like when you live in it. I mean, I remember at one point in my life, there's a town south of San Francisco called Santa Cruz, on the ocean, and I had these dreams of living in this community. And then once I lived there, the experience was so much different than what I was expecting.
Yeah.
And so you said that you've loved being a writer. Tell me a little bit about your story. Tell me about what you're working on. This sounds fascinating.
Yeah. So I went to college for creative writing actually. And I was very particular about that because I wanted to go to a university where it wasn't English with creative writing. I was like, no, creative writing.
Oh,
Like
wow.
that is
Okay.
this.
Uh-huh.
And so I ended up choosing that over like fashion school because I also wanted more of a traditional like university experiment or
Mhm.
experience.
Mhm.
So I would say when I was there, I really loved experimental prose and poetry. So a genre that's sort of bending the expectations of what you would anticipate if you open up a poetry book or a prose book. So I was like really into that. And I was doing a lot of like experimental, kind of fragmented storytelling. I was very interested in how trauma and society and inherited trauma impacted somebody's perspective. And so I would literally illustrate that by deliberately fragmenting a story. So it wasn't this like continuous narrative that you usually expect when you pick up a book. But then after at college, I worked as a teacher and I was studying a lot of like adolescent literature because I was facilitating these book clubs for all ages. And that's what got me obsessed with YA and like middle grade too. Honestly,
Mhm.
any adolescent literature is amazing to me, but for whatever reason, I don't really know like what sparked it. Maybe just like reading and teaching The Outsiders by S.E. Hinton, which is like one of my favorite books ever. I think something like that, it started to like culminate into where I was just obsessively reading these like YA stories, queer YA. I love romance novels as well. So all that is to say that that has led me to obsessing about YA fiction. So I have two projects right now, chaotically. The first one is a YA rom-com and it's based in Orange County and it's one of those stories where it's like enemies to lovers, but the two characters are vastly different. Like one of
Mm.
them's poor, one of them's extremely wealthy. one of them has the like lazy genius archetype, and the other one is like prim and proper straight A student. And so their story, it flips back and forth. So one of those dual POVs where you get to like hear their story in their own voices. So I'm doing the second draft of that. I had to make some pretty big changes to that to make it more interesting. It didn't actually originate as an enemies to lovers. So there's that story. And then last summer I got into Lambda Literary's LGBTQ writing retreat for emerging writers, and that was amazing. I got to work with Aiden Thomas, who has written Cemetery Boys, which I actually remember reading years ago and being like, whoa, it's so cool to read about like a trans character from a trans author. So I actually took the opportunity to apply to that retreat and to almost like give myself motivation to start my next project. So my other project is also YA. It's a little bit more of like an ensemble, like friend group cast, and they're going to enact revenge on abusers in their community, and they're going to do it with magical powers bestowed upon them by an ancient goddess. And so
Sounds so good.
I really wanted a community experience to like help build that up, because it's really difficult to write about trauma, and like also this story tackles like sexual assault. And so I was scared to write it, to be honest, but I got in, and then they were like, okay, you have to submit like 3 pages so other people can read it. I was like, oh fuck, I haven't written this yet. So
Shoot.
that really like got it going. And I got really great feedback, and also met this amazing like community of writers. We're still in contact. We're like organizing our own in-person retreat this summer, other YA writers too. So those 2 projects are fun, because when I get kind of tired of writing like just contemporary, no magic, I'm like, let me go over to this one, and I'm writing about like mythology and magic. And so I found too, for myself as a multi-dimensional artist, that having multiple projects to bounce between is really helpful for me. And it might take longer for me to actually finish them, but it helps me build momentum, because I don't know, just the process of being at different stages is motivating. Because when I get overwhelmed with the second draft, where there's just like so much work to do, I can go to my other one, and it's just beginning, and it's like exciting, and there isn't as much pressure. So those are my 2 main projects that I'm writing right now, but I also dabble other ones too. Like I write my Substack. I'm also developing my side quest universe, and that's kind of turning into like fantasy writing. I've been doing like low key like fantasy writing, and I could possibly see it evolving into a book someday, just not right now. I have too many books on my plate to do that. I think adding a third one would be a little much.
You know, you just have such a joyful, magical energy about you.
Thank you.
I really love that. I mean, it's just so nice to hear people pursuing these things that, I mean, for me in my world, you know, I'm a mom. I live in like suburbia, essentially outside of the Bay Area. You know, most people, they just go to work. They don't really think about having this type of like creativity in their life. They don't think about embracing a whimsical side of their life. And so it has felt for me like kind of isolating at times. So it's been really exciting and fun to find people like yourself. And, you know, you created your whole side quest challenge. I mean, unfortunately, it started like right when I was going to leave for my travels, but I just joined you for the first call. And it was so beautiful to see all the different kinds of people that are coming together and feeling inspired. And what I love about it, and what I realized, is that you don't necessarily have to live, you know, all these people don't have to be your neighbors to feel like you have a community of creative and whimsical people around you. Like you can join things like what you offered, and you can make friends through that who ultimately become like real friends.
Yep.
I mean, isn't that cool? Like, I really feel like as much as we're apart, we can actually still be together. And I think, you know, a lot for so many of us, we get so wrapped up in our day-to-day world that we don't even give ourselves the chance to be creative. Right? I mean, I think about a lot of the people that I know, they never even give themselves like, they don't even consider it. And I think it really makes you, I mean, for me, like having this podcast, having a creative outlet has completely changed my life.
Well, yeah, there's more studies coming out now that are talking about creativity as a necessary tool for our mental health. Having a space to express, even if it's you never show it to anybody, or you don't have to pursue a career in the arts to engage in
Right.
creativity. And I host these in-person workshops here in Milwaukee that are usually like collage based, but they are either astrology or tarot. And I've found that those events are really cool because I'll sometimes get people who are like, yeah, I don't consider myself an artist, but collage feels really accessible to me because they're taking elsewhere and putting things together. And I find that collage is probably one of my favorite things to do with people who don't identify as artists yet, because
Mm-hmm.
it can show them that actually they are creative. And actually, they don't need to be like super good at painting or drawing to enjoy it. And yeah, I've just found a lot of great community, and people have reflected back to me that my workshops have helped them engage with creativity more consistently and see it as, yes, a space to express themselves, as opposed to putting all this pressure on themselves. Like, this has to be good, or this has to be an
Mm-hmm.
medium. That's all great and good. And there are plenty of artists out there who do aspire for those things, but I think everybody is creative. Like, that is my focus.
Yes.
I
That's what I
just
was
think,
going to ask you. Do you
yeah,
think everybody has creativity in them?
absolutely. I think there's many ways to explore creativity that isn't explicitly art. I think, when I've been doing a lot of research on medieval alchemists and modern chemistry and that transition, I was like, oh, scientists are really creative and very
Very,
whimsical, actually.
very much so.
And it's interesting to me, this sort of dichotomy between STEM and like the arts and literature,
Mhm.
because if I could run a school, I would be like, no, we are making connections between visual art and science. We are making connections between math and literature. I think that there's so many different pathways to be creative, and you don't have to even pick up art to do it. I just think creativity is sort of an orientation that we have, and also, like I think about people who are innovative are creative.
Very creative.
So creativity just means we're sort of playing with what we're given, and also like pushing ourselves to experiment more. So I do think creativity, experimentation, those things are kind of one and the same, regardless of how those things are materializing.
Oh yeah. I mean, I think about in my own career outside of podcasting. I mean, as I have gotten more interested in my magic and all these things, I've really started to funnel it into my regular work too. It's like, how can I use these different things that I am experimenting with, and how can I translate that into the way that I'm caring for my patients? It doesn't mean that I'm like doing magic on my patients necessarily,
Yeah.
but it's like carrying that energy, that vibration into the room with them. And it's made a huge difference. I mean, I think it's very noticeable. I think it's very noticeable to the patients. I think it's very noticeable to the people that I work with, my staff, like, and it's contagious too. I think like once you experiment with these different things, like people are like, oh, well, what are you doing? Like, what are you working on over there? And I think then it gives people that ability to feel like it's accessible for them too.
Yeah. That sort of, I think creativity and magic open paths for people and open
Mhm.
possibilities.
Yeah. I think now, do you follow a very, like, are you a very spiritual person too?
Oh yeah, definitely.
I like that. Like, so you're like, yes.
Yeah. I knew that I was witchy when I was like 14.
Yeah.
My mom didn't ever force religion on me because she
Mhm.
calls herself a recovering Catholic. And so she
Yeah.
was pretty adamant about like, you're not going to go to Catholic school. You don't have to go to the church if you don't want to. It was very open. And I think because of that, it allowed me to actually like gravitate towards what I resonate with. And at the time, it was Wicca, because that was what was on the internet. Now I don't really identify as Wiccan. Now I'm diving deeper into like my ancestral traditions and learning more about that. So, but I didn't have access to that kind of thing when
Of
I was like
course.
15. So, of course, it's seen mostly like new age kind of witchy stuff, but that always attracted me. I was always fascinated with spell work, magic, I think even as a kid, a teenager, I knew that glamour was magic of some kind. And
Yeah.
so it wasn't until when I was a little bit older that I started to actually use language like witch, or I was interested in astrology in college, and I was kind of the friend who people would go to decipher their charts. And so I think astrology also, I developed my experience with that in tarot. So I really do feel like with my art as well, my spirituality is pretty multimodality, multidimensional, and I see all these things threading together and connecting. And I'm excited to keep going down this path of learning more about like my lineage. I'm really into like reading mythology and folklore of all kinds. I would love to sort of learn from other traditions as well as I'm learning from my own, because you do start to see like a lot of folklore references really similar themes. And I find that so fascinating that
Mhm.
people at different places at different times could tell the same stories.
So
And
fascinating.
yeah, so spirituality, I really resonate with that. And I think that my spirituality is not separate from my creativity.
No, and that's what I was thinking. I mean, it's like it's kind of like it's really part of it. It's like really one and the same, you
Mhm.
know. I Yeah, I mean, I think the more that I have become accepting of like who I am and where I think my soul came from, I don't know. I know it sounds kooky to a lot of people, but I really feel like I came from some sort of like fairy realm. I've always felt that about myself, but to say that out loud just sounds kind of weird sometimes. I
Yeah.
mean, it probably doesn't sound weird to people like yourself, but Sally Sue that lives down the street is like, you feel like you're from the fairy realm. And I'm like, I do actually.
I resonate with fairies too. I also love that fairies are mischievous
Oh,
and
yes.
not like the
No,
not classic good.
no.
Like they're kind of in their own realm, and
They're
I
their
actually
own thing.
appreciate that about fairies and folklore about fairies
Mhm,
too. I've been learning more about like Irish
mhm.
perspective about fairies, and I just feel like the Irish have like so much respect for that
So
kind of.
much. But back to what you said about folklore, what's interesting to me is that, people will say like, oh, these are just stories or whatnot. But it's like, well, if people were having these similar experiences, they were not, these people weren't necessarily connected in any way at that time. I mean, travel was nothing like it is today. Well, then there has to be some truth to these things, right? Because how else would they have similar experiences if those things weren't happening? Like the folklore has to be based on something.
Yeah, I think that folklore, mythology, I think that it's kind of like when you, because I'm also a historian and I love
Mhm.
history, and I love also how like modern historian traditions, like they do try to create a sort of scientific method to understanding the past. But I think that it's incomplete when you don't incorporate folklore and
Mhm.
mythology and these magical traditions, because I think that the truth of history is somewhere in between all of those things. And I think that mythology and folklore is more, can be sometimes more powerful than real historical events. And
Sure.
so I don't like, I'm not going to underestimate the power of those stories, especially because a lot of folklore especially is rooted in, I don't know, just everyday people. A lot of history is told from the perspective of like kings and queens and
Sure.
people, and like they commission these things, but like folklore really is the people's history, especially when we have absence of information about like how they live their lives.
And just the regular people. I mean, there's so many more of just the regular people than there are of like nobility and things like that. And
Yeah.
why is their perspective so much more important than everybody else's?
Yeah.
I don't
So
think it is at all.
I also love the creative process of creating our own myths. And I think part of that is a reaction to my orientation to the world, like being somebody who's descendant from European settlers and somebody who's not connected to where my people came
Mhm.
from. And so I do think that there's this part of like like my process to reconnect and like forge those bonds that were broken by like assimilation and white supremacy are in rooted in story. And so I kind of have this belief that if you want to rewrite or if you want to change your life, you have to rewrite the story that you're
Mhm.
telling about your life. And I think that encouraging people to write their own mythology or to even write stories inspired by other stories, I just think that's like so juicy and
That
exciting.
is, that's so interesting. I never really thought about that.
Yeah.
That's so cool. Like you can write your own story based on your own life and your own perception of how things are and based on whatever. I thought that's a really good thing to think about. I really like that. I'm gonna have to sit with that.
It
I'm
feels
gonna
like
write my own mythology.
trauma's like feels trauma informed too, because to me,
Hmm.
I feel like healing from trauma, I identify with that definition of like it's expanding our capacity again for joy
Hmm.
and presence. And I think that story is a really effective tool to help us bring ourselves back to ourselves, especially fiction, because fiction, you can often look at things in the face when they're fake, right?
Yes. Oh, for
Versus
sure. Hmm.
looking at something that it feels too real. And so I don't know. I think storytelling, performance, fake art or whatever, not fake art, but art that's like about fake stories. I feel like there's so much opportunity to actually explore what's real and to actually understand things better through stories than just, I don't know, plainly saying what happened.
I mean, I guess we can also think about things like having maybe like an alter ego or something like
Yes.
that that you feel more confident in. If you say, I'm going to show up as this person today, it feels true to you, but it's also still like not fully, and then you feel more confident. I mean, one of the people that I personally really look up to is someone like Lady Gaga, who has like all of these incredible, like, like Lady Gaga is her kind. I mean, it is her, but it's almost like an alter ego because, I mean, but all the things that she's been able to create with that persona and how she's been able to like totally transform her persona over time. And I think that's really interesting. And I can see that too. I mean, I even think back to when I was younger, like I always felt these certain ways about me, but then it was like I had this like coat, this like black sweater coat that was hooded and it had like this furry, like purple magical furry trim around it. And I would put that on and it was like, this is my fairy coat. I can show up with this and it feels like real, and it felt like acceptable or something. I don't know. Sometimes
Yeah.
I don't really know how to articulate what I'm trying to say, but
No, I know what you're saying because I've felt that always with fashion. And yes, I was obsessed with pop stars, still am, because I have also recognized the power of the persona. And I also recently developed my own drag persona, Dash Debonair, because
I love it.
yeah, I was a part of this virtual like alter ego show, and it was really cool to go through that process. It's with a collective called With Soft Power. And yeah, I think activation through personas is really
Mhm.
powerful because I think we do have a lot of blocks. And sometimes it can be really difficult to get from one point of being to another. And I
Mhm.
think fashion, makeup, personas, art can collapse that a little bit.
Absolutely. I would also love to speak to your side quest challenge that you did. Are you planning to do that again ever in the future? Because I mean, I would love to fully commit to that again in the future. I mean, I guess first of all, I would love for you to explain to listeners what it is that you created because I feel like you had like some different personas that you were presenting throughout that challenge, which
Yeah.
I loved. And then I would love to share with that because I think that it was something that looked like such a cool opportunity.
Yeah, so side quest, I created a 30-day side quest challenge. And my goal for that was one to like connect with more people because I'm sort of at the beginning stages of really creating multi offerings within this universe. So I created three different personas to give side quests. And it's inspired by, video games, especially like fantasy video games where you go up to a character and they would have a quest for you. And it wouldn't always be connected to the main quest either. But in video games, oftentimes the side quests are really helpful because they'll build up your stamina, your experience. They might give you like special objects to help your main quest. And so that was the That was the vision where I was like, okay, what if I created this challenge where I'm introducing people to this new world, introducing them to this idea that actually our side quests are really important. And actually doing these little low stakes creative projects can help us in our main quest. So the three personas I created were inspired by like a combination of like archetypes, and I incorporated astrology into it too. So I have the bard, who's, the classic bard, like singing, dancing, kind of silly and fun,
Mhm.
jester energy. And his side quests were quite easy, simple, straightforward, not too much effort. And then as the weeks go on, the challenges get more intensive. So I was also hosting like live events to connect with people. We did like a drawing exercise. So, and then each week you would get an email from me with these side quests. So the other two characters were the witch and the monarch. And the witch was, very classic witchy energy, kind of spidery too, like web weaver, glamour magic kind of vibes, a little more intensive. So by week 2, we get the side quest from the witch, a little bit more immersive, takes more time. A lot of her quests were attached to like spirits and ancestors and developing connections with other people. And then lastly, the monarch is all about like excellence. So those are sort of the side quests that were more intensive, maybe even a little scary, because some of them were like pitch something to someone, create your own artist statement. So more intensive. And then throughout those 4 weeks that I was doing that, I had guests who were either doing hosting workshops. I had 4 people give their own unique side quests. So I really wanted it to be this community event, this momentum for the excitement, and also introduction to sort of me, like how I wanted to operate. And I've really wanted to create an immersive world that people could enter into, as opposed to just, I don't know, being a witch on the internet and not really having like an orientation towards anything. I wanted to find my people. So about 200 people signed up for that challenge.
Incredible.
Yeah, and so what I'm doing now is I'm expanding it. So I'm again like seeing this as an immersive landscape. I'm actually drawing a map of the world. I'm creating a story. So I'm building up this to launch my membership, which is still under construction, but I'm calling it Side Quest Journey to the Underworld, or Underworld Journey, because my idea is that the fun little side quests like bring people in. And then
Mhm.
once they're there, and once they're like, getting more comfortable with like telling perfectionism to go away, or like working through their imposter syndrome, or, any of the creative
Yes.
blockages that come up,
Mhm.
I'm like, okay, now we're going to go to the underworld and look at these a little bit more. So the underworld journey is going to be a little more immersive, a little more intense, but still have that like openness and that playful persona. And in terms of like the curriculum, I'm thinking of doing like a character building workshop. I want to talk to people about how glamour magic is one way to embody this. It's going to also incorporate shadow work, which to me, I think needs to be very ritual based. Like I
Mhm.
would love to lead people through rituals of like releasing these sort of qualities or these stories that other people have given them. So yes, it's all about like the story, but I'm also creating like a narrative where there's going to be a villain that we're going to like have to be at odds with. So I think again, story is like the main theme in all of my work. I want people to go on this journey with me and also be immersed in a story, because I don't know, I just feel like story immersion has been very helpful for me to navigate life's challenges. And I think people are really desperate for hopeful stories, or stories that counter this sort of like nihilistic, hopelessness that we see, I think, a lot in like American society,
Yes,
to be specific. So I think people are really hungry
I
for
think
that,
so.
even if
And
it's game.
what I love too is that, this space that you're creating, I mean, you had a wide variety of people join, right? You had all different ages of
I
people
did.
coming on. So it's not like this is just for a specific group of people of a certain age. I mean, I loved that. I mean, we saw some older ladies on there that were just like fabulous. And I just thought that was so cool that this is touching people across, all over, really. I mean, people join probably from different parts of the world. And I think you're touching people all around. People want this. People want to feel, people want community. People want community of people that are kind of like them, but not like clones of them, but have similar
Mhm.
interests, and where they can feel like it just feels very inclusive, right? You're not judging people. They're able to show up as they are. And I think that's really nice because it's scary sometimes to like go out in the world and show up as ourselves.
Oh, yeah, and that's my big thing. I'm big on authenticity, coming into a space exactly as you are. Like, you don't need to you can, like, engage with glamour magic or, like,
Sure.
use it as an opportunity to dress up or,
Or
play these personas, but that's not a requirement to enter my world.
I love that. I mean, because it just feels like we need that, I mean, we really need that. I mean, things have gotten so, feels like you step outside and things have gotten so derailed, and you're just like, but aren't we just humans? Like, aren't we supposed to just be here on this earth, like enjoying each other and enjoying life? And, like, why does it have to be so dark and dismal and things all the time? I mean, it doesn't have to be. I mean, we can have fun. We can enjoy each other. We can create these communities. I mean, I think that this offering sounds, I mean, it's like, sign me up right now because that sounds so fun. But it also sounds like it's not just easy. There's a challenge to it too. You have to dig deep. Like, we have to uncover these different parts of ourselves to truly be ourselves too, right?
Yeah, I think the overarching sort of messaging that I'm doing with this offering is that it can actually be very difficult to be authentic and align with your desires. And I
Mhm.
define whimsy and being whimsical as alignment, because people who are whimsical tend to be they're responding to an immediate thing. So it might be like, oh, I have this like feeling that I really want to go down that path, or there's a sort of there's not a disconnect between what you want and how you're acting, but in order to get there, especially if that's like uncomfortable for a lot of people, we have to really kind of dig deeper. And I also think my perception of success is quite different than what other people perceive it as. I see success as alignment because that's going to look different for everybody, right? So if people, and like what you were talking about earlier of growing up in a family where like your father was like, this is the way, maybe for him, but like all of us have our own journeys to go through, and we're all navigating these like cultural messages about who we
Mhm.
should, where we should go, what we should do with our time in life. So I actually think it's quite radical to be honest about what you actually like, what you want, and then build a life around it. Because I mean, I had to do that and it was hard.
Yeah.
And there were a lot of detours.
There's always a lot. There's a lot of, yeah, there's a lot of, I mean, I had a detour for like 20 years,
Yep.
but it's like, why is it too late? It's not too late for me now.
Yeah.
Why is it too late? I can be a mom of two kids and
Yeah.
do these things. Like, I can do these things because it's like necessary for me. It
Yeah.
ultimately feels like to have these conversations, to meet people like yourself, to explore these things, it feels like necessary for the core of who I am. And I was thinking, like, I was showing my son today some of these things, like some like more whimsical outfits that I'm putting together, and he's like, "Oh my gosh, mom, are you gonna really wear that? That's so cringe. Where are you gonna wear that?" I'm like, "To Target." What? I was like, "Well, that's where I shop, and
Yeah.
these are my clothes, so I'm gonna wear them to Target." "Oh my gosh, mom." I'm like, "Oh my god, I know you're 9, but I'm here. I'm here to be cringe. Like, I think cringe is wonderful."
I agree. Also, it's really funny too because I worked with kids for a long time, and in particular, elementary students, and I worked in person. I was like a third grade teacher, and I remember like my students would always try to like shame me. They'd be like, "Why are you doing that?" And I'm like, this doesn't work because I don't have shame. Like, I truly do
I don't
not."
feel bad about this.
Yeah, and, like, when you're a teacher, oh my gosh, I do think actually my teacher journey helped me shed
Sure.
all of those things because, like, you don't have time to be in your head about stuff, especially if you have little ones in front of you. Like, you have to be on it, and, like, you have to be, like, dynamic and expressive and open and experimental, And so, yeah, I feel like that really just destroyed all my imposter syndrome, all of my like fear
Yeah.
about being perceived as too much. It really helped me be performative too. And I do think too, even though kids, they go through their own journey, right? Where
Mhm.
they become very sensitive to other
Yes.
people's perception. And it's really healthy for them to have adults in their lives who are like, I don't care. I'm gonna do
Yeah.
this anyway. And like eventually, like they're gonna be so grateful that
Yeah.
they have a mom that is like so open and like willing to do what you want to do, because there are so many people who don't have that.
Oh, for sure. He's like looking around at the art in my space up here. He's like, Mom, that stuff is so creepy. I'm like, are you just noticing this now? Because this stuff has
Yeah.
literally been hanging on the wall since you were born. Like, why is it
That's
now bothering you? I
he's
don't
just
get it.
wait. He's becoming more aware.
He's so becoming more aware. He's like, my forehead is so big. I look like I have an egghead. I'm like, where are you coming up with this stuff? Who told you your head looks like an egg?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, they're so funny. They'll take you down, man. You think that whatever,
Mm.
they will just give it, those kids, man, they will just give it to you straight. And I'm just like, okay. It's so funny because my mom will come out to visit and she lets them, like, they offend her. I'm like, well, they're little kids. Like, they're going to say what they see.
Yeah.
They're not trying to offend you. They're just being honest with what they see because, they haven't developed that filter yet of like, oh, I'm going to say this. This is going to hurt someone's feelings. They see you and they're like, oh, why does grandma look so old? What? Maybe you shouldn't say that to her face. But, grandma looks like that because she doesn't like to use lotion or do skincare. So, you know, it's funny. I can believe what you're saying. I mean, I don't know. Working with little kids, it's tough.
Yes, it is. It's exhausting. And I really loved it because I also like when people are honest, and like a lot of adults aren't. Uh,
No, they're not.
and maybe
Yeah.
this is just like me. I also like, I feel like I'm probably ADHD. So I have like that kind of like autistic perspective. Like, I'm just going to say exactly what I feel. And people are like, why are you doing that? And I'm like, doesn't everybody do that? And so I've had to learn my own and been on my own path. And I just feel like being around kids, it's so refreshing because, like, yeah, they might roast you, but at least you know exactly where you stand with them.
I know my son. I just roasted you, mom. Yep. It's so funny. I love it. I mean, did you have siblings growing up?
Yeah, I had two younger brothers, one of them 2 years younger, and then one 11 years younger.
Oh, a big gap there, huh?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
We're
I
close now.
I grew up an only child, so I was very much like in my own mind, and I
Yeah.
was alone, and my parents were divorced when I was 6. So I was kind of always like, I call myself a liminal witch because I just feel like I've always been in this like
Yeah.
transition, like liminal space, like throughout my life where I've just kind of like, I've never felt super attached to one place. So I feel it like I'm someone that's attached to a lot of places. Like, I want to be a witch of the woods, but I also want to live in the city and I also want to live in the country. And I think part of that's being Sagittarius energy too. So I
Yeah.
want to be everywhere.
I have a Venus in Sag and it's conjunct Jupiter in Sag. It's in my 12th house. So it's a little, it's not as obvious, I think, but for me, it makes total sense because I feel similar to you where I'm just so curious about
Mhm.
everything and
Everything.
anything. And I want to live 10 different lives. And in some
Yeah,
ways, I have. And yeah, I think also I feel like my side quest container does feel very Sagittarius coded because it's
totally.
curious, open, expressive, playful, and that is very Sagittarius energy. So it is really nice to bring forward that because I think not everybody sees that side of me. So having a space where it can kind of come out and play feels nice because I have a lot of Capricorn as well. And the energies
Mm-hmm.
are quite different from each other.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel even like my side quest underworld journey, you're going to get more of that Capricorn kind
Mm-hmm.
of like, I'm going to tell you exactly how it is. We got to do the hard work. We're going to kind of sit in our discomfort and we're going to become better because of it. Whereas I think my side quest is like, ooh, come over here. I have like a creative quest for you. And then once they're over here, it's like, all right, are you ready to do shadow work now?
We're going deep. You reel them in.
Exactly. Yeah, and so I think I've also been experimenting with bringing forth my intensity and my depth because I feel like people are drawn to me because I have those qualities, and I'm trying to find a way to bring them out in like social media, which can be kind of difficult because it's not really designed for depth. So yeah, finding ways to do that. But I think I've been prioritizing just allowing myself to write when I feel like it, as opposed to like this constant pressure to be putting stuff out there. I've allowed myself to just take my time with it. And when I take my time, it usually ends up better.
Yes, of course. So, what's a day in your life look like? I mean, do you mostly just work for yourself? Do you do other work outside of all of your offerings?
Right now, I'm mostly working for myself and really trying to like build an offering that feels sustainable for me. I think, I do my in-person workshops here and there. I've gotten paid to do like drag performances. So I've been kind of this last year just experimenting with different ways to get paid to exist and be
Mhm,
myself. And I would really like to be having like a business where I feel really like foundational. And
mhm,
because I think having that stability would allow me to be more experimental in
mhm,
other ways. And I would love to build a life where I'm making money from writing novels. I'm making money from working with artists and doing creative consultations. I'm making money, facilitating in-person and online classes with witches and other really interesting people. I've I like career is not linear for me. I'm also
mhm.
interested in like screenwriting, creating television, movies. Like I just anything with storytelling. So my day-to-day life reflects that. Like I'll work on my novel, I'll post on like my social media, I'll work on I might do like, I do my photography as well with like the
Oh, yeah.
personas. I really like have created a schedule that allows for all of these different things. And I also live alone, and that is definitely nice
Oh
too.
my
Because
gosh, that sounds like such a dream when
yeah, I
I
can just like,
never have a moment to. That sounds so amazing right now.
yeah, no, I'm sure with like having kids and a
Oh,
family, it's definitely challenging. And I used to live with
so
a partner.
stimulating.
Yeah, I not the same thing, but I used to live with a partner who was not very supportive, and
Oh,
so now having this space where I could just have shit on the floor and it's
yeah.
fine. I'll get to that sewing
If it
project, but
doesn't bother you, then why, if it's not bothering you, then it's fine, right?
exactly, like, I can live a little chaotically because I don't have enough shelves to put all of my art supplies for now.
Yes.
So, I do sort of feel like I kinda do feel like I'm living that, like, ideal, creative, whimsical life.
Seems like it.
I would like to find other sources of income, but, like, again, I want my priority is experiential. So if I'm doing a side job, I want it to fit into the main quest in some capacity. So we shall
You
see.
have where you live, do you feel like is there like a witchy community there, or is that
Yeah,
just
I have
Milwaukee area? I mean, I've just never been there, so I don't know what the vibe of that city feels like.
there's definitely a witchy community. I would say a lot of eco witches are here. People who are really into gardening,
Oh,
who are
cool.
really into like yeah, like small like farm to table kind of
Mm.
stuff. Like I mean, obviously it's the Midwest. So there's like farmers everywhere, and it's a lot easier to access certain foods. So like I feel like the witches here tend to be like you see a lot of like herbalists
Oh,
or
sure.
people kind of like combining these modalities and connecting them to like land stewardship, and people are very community minded here.
Oh, beautiful.
I've lived in Florida, New York City, and California, and Milwaukee, interestingly enough, is like one of those spaces where I was here when I first got here. I could see myself having an in-person space and it not being so far out of reach or like too much competition. And I've actually gotten to know some people who own like ceramic studios, who own esoteric shops that are also kind of their artist studio. And it just feels like the energy here is so supportive and like they love small businesses. And I have my friend Danny and Emily, who I did a podcast with. They've also introduced me to a lot of like witchy people in the community because they've lived here a little bit longer than I have. And so, yeah, people are just like very welcoming, very values oriented,
Mhm.
and but also like at the same time you don't necessarily have to have the same exact values, but they're just like, I don't know, people here are just, they're open to those kinds of things. And I
Interesting.
also feel like Milwaukee is just such a beautiful place in terms of our nature. And we're getting to that time of the year where it is just so gorgeous and stunning, and everybody's outside and everybody's going to art fairs, and
People are
there's
coming alive. Like the spring is
yeah,
springing.
spring and summer are amazing in Milwaukee. If
I
you could
bet.
get out here, the weather is beautiful too. Like it can get like a little hot, but I mean, we're right by the lake, so it's not that bad.
Interesting. And how did you end up there?
Long story, kind of. So I've always
Does
kind
your
of
parents live
wondered.
there? Does your family live there?
I have one aunt who lives in Waukesha. So I have family in Iowa, which is the state next to Wisconsin, and I have family in Ohio. So
Okay.
when I was in Florida, I was not happy there. And I was like, okay, where's my next place? I don't want to go back to the East Coast. It's a little too expensive. California is like not in the question right now. And I had applied to University of Iowa for their writers program. I didn't get in, but I do think that that decision helped me be like, oh, maybe the Midwest is someplace I can go. Like it's affordable. I'm actually close to, because I wanted to be close to my grandparents because they're both still alive, amazingly,
Oh,
but they're
that's
in their
incredible.
80s. So I was like, let me go somewhere that's not right where they are, because I didn't want to live like
Yeah.
in the same city per se. But Milwaukee appealed to me because it has that like big city vibe, but not like Chicago, where it's
Yeah.
like
Big,
sprawl.
big. Yeah.
Here, it's like you can kind of still get this feeling of you're in the city, but you're also kind of not. It's really nice. And I think
Sure.
I thrive in that kind of space where I need more nature. Like New York City was really hard for me because I felt really, there's just too many people and I'm just not accustomed to that life.
There's a
I
lot of
want
people.
space. I want places where I feel like I can be alone, but still close enough to people where I'm not super isolated. So I don't know. Milwaukee was just like, let me try it out. I had an aunt who
Interesting.
lived 30 minutes away, and she was really helpful to help me find an apartment when I first got here. And yeah, it's been really great. I think because I've lived here, I've reconnected with cousins, my aunt. I've seen my grandparents like a ton. Just a couple weekends ago, I went down there, and it's just really nice to be in proximity to family. Because when I was living in Florida and New York, I was just far from everybody, and it was hard.
Absolutely. I hear you. I hear you. I mean, for us, like we're here and outside of the Bay Area, and we don't really have anybody here. It's just me and my husband, and we have our kids, and we have no one that really helps us. I mean, other than hiring like babysitters and stuff.
Yeah,
And at one point, I thought about like we thought about moving back to like Kansas City and stuff. And I don't know. I think now that I've got, when I was young, you kind of I wanted to get away from that place that I grew up.
totally.
Now, like I have such a bigger appreciation for it now. Like two of my best friends live in Iowa. I mean, I don't know. It's interesting. Interesting. It's always interesting how people end up at different places in the world. Like where I live in California, never in my life was this particular location on my radar at any point. But here I am, and I actually enjoy it. It's in close proximity to a lot of cool things. I'm trying to find like my in-person community, but I realize like if I want that, I'm probably gonna have to be the one that creates it. You know?
Yeah, and being somebody who's lived in multiple places that I'm not from, I like, in some ways I look around my life in Milwaukee and I'm like, oh, I built this for myself because I put myself out there. I went to things when people invited them to me. And so it is hard, but I do think that that effort into putting yourself out there does pay off,
It
because like
does.
no one's going to come over and ask you. They don't know who you are. Like you have
Yeah.
to like,
No one's thinking about you. You think
exactly.
everybody's thinking about you. No one's thinking about you. You have to make the effort. Like if you want to make the friends, if you want to create the things, you have to put yourself in uncomfortable situations sometimes, and it can pay off so big. Sometimes it's a flop. Oh well, we learn from our mistakes, we learn from our failures more than we learn from our successes. So, you know, so that's very interesting. Yeah, like I've always wanted to visit that state. It's one of the states I haven't visited, so it sounds beautiful. We had a cabin when I was growing up in Minnesota, which I have like very like I have like all my gnome energy comes from Minnesota. So it started there.
I feel like the Midwest is very forest energy.
Yeah.
Well, different parts of it, at least like the northern part where I'm in
Sure.
Wisconsin, like there's a lot of woodlands, a lot of like lakes and stuff. And I'm like, there is no way that fairies don't live here.
They
Like,
do.
of course they do. Like, look at it's like a freaking woodland wonderland over
Yeah.
here. And I really resonate with that because even though growing up by the beach was amazing, and I do consider myself a sea witch,
Mhm.
especially when I'm by the ocean, but there was something about SoCal that just something was missing for me.
Mhm.
I felt growing up, I had a hard time. I also grew up as a goth. So being goth in Orange County is quite difficult, mostly logistically because it's so hot and
Yeah.
you're wearing all black. And I don't know, there was a part of me that yearned for, I had a best friend who lived in Oregon. So I'd go up there and be like, oh, this is more my vibe, like cloudy skies, woodland,
Moody,
moody.
mystical.
Yeah, and like the appeal of the four seasons
Mhm.
is strong because even though I move here and people are like, "You're from California, why the fuck are you here?"
Yeah.
For our winter, and I'm like, actually though, I kind of like the seasonal shifts
Yeah.
because I feel it's easier to align your body
You
with
can.
that. And I also am a winter witch. I'm born
Mhm.
in January, and
Mhm.
so I don't know. I do feel powerful in the winter, even though everybody's like really depressed, and I'm just like over here, like, yes.
Love his weather. Yeah, no, I hear you. I hated I hated the winters in the Midwest and now that I've gotten older and I think now that I'm like so much more seasonally connected, I love that winter energy. I really I appreciate it so much more now. I mean, I hated it when I was younger because it was like such a bummer to have to go out in the cold and bundle up and deal with the car and the scraping of the windows and all the things, but the energy of those seasonal shifts is so cool, especially like aligning our spirituality around those energetic shifts is so fun and interesting. And I don't know, it's fun. Like to me, I think it's fun. But well, anyway, I kept you on here for an hour now, which I feel like I could talk to you honestly forever, but I'll be I'll be conscious of your time because it sounds like you have a lot going on. I'm like, what is it like living in their mind?
it's
Going on in there.
it's like a ping, but not it's not going back and forth. It's
Yeah,
like
going
over
every
here and over here, and it can be hard sometimes to focus. And I appreciate the people in my life who help me with that kind of stuff and like help me like stay on track because it's very easy for me to veer off and pursue a side quest.
Well, I have a husband that's got pretty significant ADHD, and my 9-year-old definitely. I mean, he does. I mean, he's we got a lot of treatment going on for that. And I'm like, oh my gosh. It's a lot of energy. It's a lot of
Yes,
energy.
definitely.
I mean, but it's good because I feel like that's also a big time superpower. I mean, I saw it for my husband when we were on our traveling throughout Asia. Like, he can hyperfixate on certain things that are not necessarily things that I like, but he can hyperfixate on like, how do we figure out how our how do we figure out logistics of this? And I'm like, ooh, I hate figuring out that kind of stuff. But he like super hyperfixates on it. And then it like goes amazing. But
Yeah.
then also our hotel room looks like a tornado blew through there. I'm just like, oh, I can't live like this.
Yeah, I feel like I've had a lot of clarity because I wasn't really like no one thought I was anything when I was a kid because I did well in school as if like that's the only anyway, there's a whole conversation there. But when I was older and I'm working with a therapist who like works with people who are neurodivergent and she's just looking at me like, so your symptoms kind of sound like ADHD. And it was so helpful to hear that because I've never fully identified with either one. Where
Mhm.
I was like, people like with the ADHD stuff, I'm like, yeah, I do some of that, but some of that I don't resonate with. And same with autism. So thinking about how, like, I mean, all of us are more complex than just these like
Of
binary like
course.
labels and stuff. But
Of
it's
course.
definitely helpful to like piece out like, okay, this symptom is usually connected with this, and these are the tools and strategies to help with it because I just never felt like fully seen by either one of those labels. And so seeing now that like I'm kind of a mix of them, which is super fun because it's like I can be it's almost like with all of my side quests, I go really hard with them. You know what I mean? I'm like, I could be doing 5 things, but I'm like really focused on those 5 things. I jump between them. So it is very much like melding these sort of different symptoms. But anyway, I agree with you that I do think they are a superpower and that they're only challenging because most our society doesn't really make space
No,
for that kind of like difference
absolutely.
within
Yeah.
people. And I also think that most neurotypicals aren't actually like, I think that we're way more complicated
Yeah, there's
and
really no typical. Like, we all
exactly like, what
are.
does that even mean?
Yeah.
So
What does that mean?
I do feel like I love making space for people who are usually identify as neurodivergent because I don't know, it's just a lot of people can't find community that actually allows them to be their full authentic self. And maybe that's why I kind of attract a wide range of different people because I feel that I don't know, I don't like to judge people and I like to give people spaces to just be themselves.
That's it right there. I mean, boom. That's what it all comes down to. I love that. Okay, Aryn, where can everybody find you?
So on Instagram, you can find me at aryn.the.alchemist. And my website is www.arynscanlon.com. On my website, you can find my Substack for side quests. You can find my waitlist sheet for the underworld journey if that's something that you're interested in. I'll probably release it around May 1st to open it up for enrollment. And then I think, yeah, other than that, like you can pretty much find all my stuff on my website. My Instagram also is linked in there at the bottom of the page as well.
Amazing. I'll put everything in the show notes. You
Perfect.
guys, you have to check out Aryn's stuff because it's amazing. You have to join one of the side questions. It's wonderful. I mean, I'm just so honored to have met you and chatted with you. It's been so fun connecting. And I just hope that this is the beginning of our friendship, really, because I want to keep you in my circle.
Absolutely.
All right, friends. It's have a beautiful day. Enjoy your well, we're recording on a Saturday, so get out there, enjoy the day, have some whimsy, go do something fun, step outside the box.
Yes.
Do
Thank you.
something that you challenge yourself to do something different today.
Well,
All right, bye.
bye.
Thank you so much for spending this time at the threshold with me. If you want to go deeper, follow me on Instagram at mystical.mama.ash, where I share daily crystal magic and behind the scenes of this liminal life. You can also find resources, previous episodes, and ways to work with me at bigcrystalenergy.com. We're also on YouTube at Big Crystal Energy Podcast. And if this episode resonated with you, please rate it and review it and share it with a friend that you think would connect with it. It would mean so much to me and helping build this beautiful community of other magical friends and crystal workers. Thank you so much. Until next time, bye.